is it psychologists or sociologists, they call it, there's high trust cultures and there's low trust cultures. So even if you look at how Asia developed, they didn't take things that work in the West. So even Japanese political models, Chinese political models, they're different from the models that you have in the US and the UK. But unfortunately, because of colonialism and whatever else that happened historically, we have a copy paste of the UK parliamentary system. But the UK parliamentary system works in a country where people are taught from an early age it's okay to challenge authority. Here, we are taught it's not okay to speak back to your elders. It's not okay to challenge authority. So you're not going to start challenging authority when you're grown up just because your political system tells you to do so. It's the same thing in business. So apparently there's a theory that if you look at the way Asians do things, because they were cultivating rice, they have a very, very intense, hardworking culture.
This is the BOSSMAN International Podcast with your host, TAA Tomondo. Today I have a special guest, a good friend of mine, Tinotenda Murove. Tino, how you doing, my friend?
Good, good. How's the going, Ta?
It's going great. So Tino here, pretty much what he managed to do with some of his friends from high school, they built a food delivery business. So we're trying to find out how they came up with the idea, how they found the funding for the business, and where they are at right now. So that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today, Tino. So Tino is a very interesting character. He's a man that can read up to 10 books a day. That's pretty interesting. And last week, I had a friend of mine here as well, Primrose Karim. I remember Prim. So with Prim, Prim is now one of the most influential women in Africa, actually, which is pretty much interesting. I'm bringing it I'm bringing Prim up because we had a great interview last week, which people should check out. But also, too, on top of that, there's a saying that says, "Show me five of your friends, and I'll show you your future." So I have a friend like Primrose Kurima, who is now one of the most influential women in Africa, and I have a friend like Tinotenda Murove, who managed to start his own food delivery business with his other friends. So, Tino, what we're gonna do? We're gonna start on your journey of going to St. Ignatius College and how you ended up meeting the guys that you started the business with and how you guys came up with the idea. So let's start there.
Okay, yeah. So, well, the journey started in 2006. Yeah, that's when I started high school, obviously at St. Ignatius. Yeah, I think out of the how many people were involved in the business? I think there were about 16 of them. About 13 of them were from St. Ignatius. So basically, maybe I can skip forward. It was in the middle of COVID, right? One of the guys, Leon Duzoi, just decided, but no, guys, we're in COVID and, we're getting along, we're not growing any younger. What can we do? As, there's a lot of, because it was basically a banter group, discussing soccer and everything. And then it's like, okay, there's a lot of people multidisciplinary in this group, right? There's lawyers, there's engineers, quite a number of engineers, there's accountants, there's medical doctors, people from all sorts of professions, IT guys, and Atapia. It's like, but why can't we do something in terms of business, right? So the first idea was, because he was at one of the big cement manufacturing companies. It's like, no, but at our company, this is what we do when we manufacture cement. We can sell it to people who have these, those shipping containers, right? So one shipping container, it's about 40 square feet. I think it has a capacity of storing about 400 bags of cement. So at $10 a bag, I think that's about 4K, 4,000 USD. So it's like, no, let's buy a container of cement, right? I think the profit margin on one bag at that time was about $1.50. So let's buy a container of cement and sell it and make a profit from that, right? Cement is quite fast moving. obviously because a lot of construction is going on in Zim right now. So yeah, guys got excited about that idea. And then somewhere along the line, I think people's risk appetites weren't quite up there. So they're like, because the initial investment required from an individual was, I think, about three, $400. People were like, no, we don't have the risk appetite for this yet. And then somewhere along the line, I don't remember who came up with the idea. Someone was like, but no, we're in the middle of COVID. Um, why don't we start a courier service, right? Because movement was restricted back during that time, and everyone at that point was now trying to get like businesses trying to get ways of getting stuff to their clients, right? So that business keeps flowing. Because online hasn't really taken off that much, but a lot of business is being done via Facebook and via WhatsApp. Well, it's kind of online, but not your conventional online. But then there wasn't that infrastructure to then get goods from the person who's selling to their clients. So obviously, that was a glaring opportunity that was there. Movement was very much restricted. If you weren't an essential service provider, you couldn't just, move around freely in town. So, and you needed a letter that justified why you were doing business. So that's how the idea came up. We did some projections. Yeah, just something that I learned is that projections are never they'll always be far away from reality. Because obviously from our projections we're like, no, we get one bike. One bike does, I think it was like 16 deliveries a day. So obviously, even because we also had someone within the group who had, or who said they had a plug for fuel, so we could get fuel quite cheap in local currency. So working out the cost to say, okay, one bike will do, I think it was like what, 30 kilometers per liter of fuel. And then obviously then charging clients for like 50 cents per kilometer. So it worked out that the economics of it looked very good. Looked like it had really good margins. And with one or two bikes, you can make a really decent return on your investment. So yeah, fast forward, we come together. Everyone likes that idea. There are about 16 of us. We put in $200 each. That's about 3,200 bucks. And then we used that to buy two bikes. We got the tablet. We got, a few other items just for the business to start up. Um, yeah, and that's how Takura started. It's called Takura Couriers.
So
Um,
this question,
yeah.
did you guys have an app? How was I have so many questions. Okay, let me start with this one. Did you guys have an application for your services, or how did it work?
So basically, in Zim, well, now it's changing a bit, but in Zim business, a lot of business takes place on social media. So your WhatsApp and Facebook. So basically, we just started out on WhatsApp and Facebook, and I think Twitter and a bit of, yeah, and Instagram. Actually, mostly Instagram. Um, Basically, all of our dispatch work was happening on WhatsApp. So we had a WhatsApp number, WhatsApp for business. That's where we put our catalog and everything. So basically, you can actually put a storefront on WhatsApp for business. That's what we had. Didn't have an app because the uptake of apps in Zim is not very convincing. And obviously, the cost it would have taken for us the cost and the time factor for developing an app would have added an extra cost to something that wasn't yet a proven concept. So basically, it was 100% WhatsApp based, still is just WhatsApp. That's what we used. And then we basically did like one or two flyers and then went out all out on Instagram. So obviously, because there were a lot of us, every one of us was kind of a working billboard for the company. So we would all put Takuda on our WhatsApp statuses. That's quite a good amount of reach. And then started going on Instagram, just messaging any small business that I could see in Zim, like any small business that was on Instagram. We just go into their inboxes and flood their DMs. just say, this is us, we're Takura, this is what we're doing, we'd like to partner you. That was how we
So
started.
how what was the response rate from those businesses that you guys, we call it here, it's like cold calling, right? You're
Cold
not really
calling, yeah.
calling,
Yeah.
but you're messaging them. So
Yeah.
what was your response rate in that? Were you, out of five businesses that you're messaging, how many were responding back to you?
So the thing is, I guess us as Zimbabweans, you know how it is, we're very polite. We won't say, I'm not going to
Uh,
buy from you. We're like, no, I'll come back tomorrow. So a lot of
okay.
businesses would actually like, yeah, yeah, express a bit of warm interest, but then they would never really give us any business. So I guess the disadvantage was when we got into the market, we were not the first movers, but I think there were one or two other players in the market, serious players. Um, so it was a very, I'd say, relatively new concept. So even though we're in COVID, you would have thought that. So actually, the first people were approached were restaurants, right? And
Sure.
obviously, because these guys wanted us to do business with them, they're quite enthusiastic at the start. But I think the restaurants that we then approached were still kind of new, so they didn't also have a lot of volumes going on. So even though we're there on standby, because we actually had a biker, they said, no, give us a biker to put on standby. We never got any deliveries done there because the volumes were just low. So that didn't really take off. And then the businesses thing on Instagram was actually us then saying, okay, this restaurants thing is not working. Let's try to just cold call everyone, which we did. The response rate, I think, out of maybe 1,000 businesses DM'd, less than 50 then converted to actual paying recurring clients. Um, and I think for some time, we got fortunate that we got one or two clients that had like really, really high volumes because one of them was doing baking supplies. So I think at that time during COVID, everyone was now just baking for whatever reason. So she would have maybe 10, 15 clients a day. So we would literally dedicate one driver to her to do her deliveries alone. And then I think she got to a point where she was like, no, but I'm giving these guys a lot of business. And the driver, they got very friendly. So that was the mistake that we made, that we gave her one driver that she was working with every day. I think at some point they got along, they got friendly. And she was like, no, you come work for me. I'll buy you a bike. And then you'll be doing my deliveries. So we lost our biggest client just like that. And he was actually our best driver. Yeah, it was one of those things.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because that's a true reflection of how doing business in Africa can be very sketchy, and the people that employ, they don't
Yeah,
have a lot of loyalty. They just loyal to whoever is willing to pay them more. So, as a business owner, what do you think you should have done to protect yourself? Because we cannot blame them because you're always looking for a better opportunity, right? But
yeah, definitely.
how could you have protected yourself or predicted? You probably could have seen it coming, but you didn't really see it coming. But looking back, how could you guys have protected yourself from such an incident? Could there have been any measures that you could have implemented that could have, stopped something like this from happening? Besides, you talked about rotating the drivers. I think rotating the drivers is a good idea, but at the same time, she's still seeing that opportunity of like, oh, these guys are making this amount of money. I can still do it with one of the drivers. I think she would
Yeah,
just jump in any of the drivers that she likes the most. So,
yeah.
which other strategy do you think you could have implemented?
That's a very good question, and it's a very difficult one too
Let,
because
let, let me ask a question like this, Ark.
no,
Is there a way that you
uh-huh,
can set up an arrangement? People do like things, contracts when you're doing a business. Like, listen,
yes,
I'm doing this and we're doing this together. But
mhm.
I don't really think there's a way to protect yourself in this instance.
There isn't
I don't
legally because
see, even if
legally
you sign a contract.
the problem is legally even if you then sign a contract with a client, right,
Sure.
and they breach the contract, you can't really sue them. Like the cost that you're incurring to sue that client is probably not going to be worth, the legal fees that you pay. So at the end of the day, from a legal point of view, there's really not much protection, right? And even from the business point of view, so you know Via, right? The Econet ride-hailing platform. So
No,
Econet, okay,
I
so
don't know about.
Econet started a ride-hailing platform. Basically, they wanted to copy Uber. The biggest challenge that they faced was once a client used their services, right? They would get the contact details for the driver, and then they would use the platform the first time, or maybe first time and maybe the second time. But once they have the contact details for a driver, the driver would be like, okay, so the platform is charging you $5. I'll just do it for you for $3. Here's my number. Call me. You don't have to use the platform anymore. That's how essentially Via is. They're not doing very well right now, especially when in-drive thing came. But that was one of the biggest things that killed them. So even for us, right, that was not the first time. So even other times, it wasn't necessarily then the client then taking our driver and giving them a job, but it was the driver doing deliveries for the client without us knowing. So obviously, all our deliveries we would have been coming through dispatch, right, the central dispatch, which is our Takura number, and then the dispatch person would then give each driver different orders. So the first time, maybe the client comes through the dispatch, right? And then the next time, the client already has the driver's contact details because the driver calls when they come for pickup or when they do the delivery. Chances are the client is just going to call the driver directly. And then the driver is going to be like, okay, because obviously if the driver is not honest enough, they'll just be like, okay, Takura's charging you $5, pay me $4 and I'll do your delivery for free. So that was one of the biggest challenges that we had before we then put trackers and everything, that a driver would just disappear and they'll be like, no, I was doing a delivery, but it took them 4 hours to do a delivery that should have been done in 20 minutes. So obviously they weren't doing one delivery, they were doing multiple deliveries. So yes, you can fire drivers, hire other drivers, they just do the same thing. So it was a very, I guess it still is a very big challenge because I'm trying to think of ways. Yes, you can have things like customer loyalty. There's obviously some clients that you can cultivate personal relationships with as the business owners to say, yes, these people, they know us and they deal with us directly, right? And to some extent, then curbs, a lot of attrition. But you can only do so much and you can only do it with so many customers. At the end of the day, people will be more loyal to money than they are saving that dollar to saving that $2 than they are to like, these guys, they're just another courier company. And
But
also
let's
there's uh,
let's talk about something here, right? Let's talk about the hiring process.
mhm,
That's number one. Number
mhm.
two, how much are you paying these drivers? So I think that's where you need to go to a point where like your pay should be competitive enough, or the opportunity that you're giving the driver should be better than whatever opportunity that the other person can give them. I know it's quite a challenge.
So that's the
So that's
problem.
big.
This business is very highly dependent on volumes, right?
Sure.
And the margins were not as high as we thought they would be. So you
Mhm.
realized that you might have factored in the cost of fuel and said, fuel doesn't cost much. But then you didn't factor in the cost of repairs for the bikes. So for some repairs, the honest truth is maybe because we didn't really have a mechanical background, none of us really, I mean, had engineers, but they were not, they're not mechanics, they were engineers. We didn't really know if a driver comes and says, uh, I need $150 for repairing my bike. You don't know if the problem is a genuine one or they're mistreating the bike or I don't know what's going on. But at the end of the
Sure.
day, you're still going to incur the cost so that the bike gets back on the road, right? So with all those other costs piling up, no matter how much you hiked or you would have wanted to hike the driver's salaries, right? Before you were cash flow positive, you can't, there's only so much you can pay them because you're actually not generating enough cash flows. So in the early stages of our business, obviously that time when you're cold calling everyone or doing everything in our power to get clients, you could have the bike just sitting there and doing nothing for 80% of the time. And you have a driver who does like 2 deliveries a day, and maybe the delivery fees there will probably be less than $10. So over a period of a month, you can have a driver not doing enough deliveries to pay their own salary.
Mm.
So from an incentive point of view, either we'll then have to use our own capital to subsidize salaries while we hope that business is going to pick up, or pay them what's there, which is what we then ended up doing, obviously, because we only had so much capital to put into the business. So I think that was the challenge, to then say we could have incentivized them more, I suppose, but there wasn't a guarantee that they wouldn't leave us anyway. Because the challenge that then came up later was that, and I think this is what caused the competitors that were there before we started. They closed shop before we did. One of them actually was like, he wanted to sell his business to us when he was closing up, because he had quite a good clientele base, and he had quite a good brand recognition. So obviously he wanted to give us his business. We're like, no, you guys can run this business. You can take my clients for a fee, obviously, which we then realized wasn't necessarily worth it. But the reason why he closed shop, the other guy closed shop, was today a bike in Zim is like $1,000, right? A delivery
Sure.
bike, entry level one. So the barrier to entry is very low. So it got to a point where the companies that sold the bikes would started this thing of like a rent to buy arrangement with the drivers. So our drivers, some of them just went to these guys and they're like, "Oh, okay, give me a bike. I'll pay it over 6 months." And then he left our company. He went to our clients and he was like, "I've started my own delivery company. I'm going to be really fast. I'm going to be really efficient. You'll get all your deliveries done because I'm just I'm a solo guy. So obviously I don't have a lot of clients. You are going to be my clients." And obviously the clients left because he was charging less than we were charging. So you find that even our own drivers then cannibalized our business. And no matter how, even if you had said, you would have had to pay him an unrealistic amount of money for him not
Sure.
to jump ship.
Let's
So
talk, let's talk about
yeah,
the hiring then.
yeah,
With the hiring process have solved the problem, the hiring process, and also trying to share your goals and your vision with them. I know I'm
yeah.
just trying to play devil's advocate here. I know,
Yeah,
it's
no,
better.
no, no. I hear you. And to be honest, we tried all of that. We had, police clearances, trade references, and these guys actually have proper references. They've worked for, Sibisa, the outlet that owns Chicken Inn, Nando's, all of the big fast food outlets. They have a delivery company. A good number of
Yeah,
our drivers came from there, so they have good references, good records. They all on paper, and they're
genuine.
actually good at their job, right? So it's not
Yeah,
necessarily about hiring wrong, but I guess it's the dynamics of the market. So because so it turns out that riders in Harare, all those delivery guys, they have a community of their own. So obviously in their community, they talk about these things. They talk about how much they're getting paid. They talk about, oh, this is the new trend. So it then happened that all of these guys who worked for other delivery companies, worked for us, worked for whoever. I think someone then got onto the trend that, you can get your own bike and do your own thing. So it's almost like a good number of them left and started their own thing pretty much at around the same time, because they then realized you can just go solo and you still get business that will at least take care of you. And then when it comes to even the company vision business, we got merchandise, we sat down with these guys, we did a nice little lunch, and we're like, no, this is where we want to go as a business. This is what we want to do. Like one of our guys was actually a good like one of our guys usually took them to his house and hosted them, and we had like, and they, I suppose because Zimbabweans, we always very polite. They'll be like, yeah, yeah. And they'll be like, yeah, we get the vision. And, no one would actually object, right? They'd be like, yes, we get it, we're on board. But at the end of the day, I suppose it's then about one feeding their family and just being pragmatic about it. Be like, why should I work for you guys when I can make more money on my own?
Okay.
And you
So
really
that
can't
makes
do anything about that.
that really makes sense. Whoever is giving the biggest opportunity is the one that's going to win at the end of the
It's
day. But
capitalism. It's
but I'm gonna
yeah.
ask you a question about having 16 people starting a business, right? It's
Hmm.
great that you have capital coming from different directions to get
Hmm.
started. As you said, you managed to raise money to buy 2 bikes, which could be in
Hmm.
a struggle for 1 or 2 people to do it.
Hmm.
My experience from doing business, people are full of headaches. Even if you agree with each other, it might be the principle or
Hmm.
something, small, but you might all be talking about the same things. So it's going to end up in a lot of arguments, in a lot of like, when it comes to making decisions, right? If you have a partner, one of my partnerships that really functioned well is that I trusted the other guy that is gonna make the best decision for the business when the time is, or whatever conversation he has, he can just come to me and say like, "Yo, listen, this is the conversation that I had. I ended up closing this deal with this guy because this is why I think the business is supposed to head to, the direction it's supposed to head towards." And most of the time, we're like on the same page, so that functioned pretty well. Then I had another partner who like couldn't trust me on making decisions on his behalf. If I go and have a quick conversation and feel like this is great for the business, I'm gonna go ahead and close this deal. And then then you come back to them and they're so mad, like, "Hey, what did you do this? You should talk to me about it." And you're like, the
Hmm.
opportunity right in front of me. It was a yes or
Hmm.
not. It was time to say yes or no. There was no
Hmm.
time to be like, oh, let me go back and talk to my partner and see what he thinks, because sometimes
Hmm.
it's a business. You got to look prepared. You got to look organized. You got
Hmm.
to look like, you know what you're doing, even if you don't know what
Hmm.
you're doing. So
Yeah.
with 6 people, I tell you, like, I don't want to have any partner right now. I hate partners. If
Yeah.
I hate partners, I'd rather have people bringing whatever they have, their own entity there, then we
Hmm.
collaborate together. That's a great
Hmm.
partnership. But a
Hmm.
partnership where like you are inside my business and we own it together 50, 20%. I don't want any of that. So because of the headaches, as I said, from my experience with just dealing with human
Yeah.
beings, tell me about it. Like 16 people.
So it actually
Ah,
wasn't as hectic as you would have thought it would be.
sure.
Yeah, we did have it. The only time we had a conflict was um, one of our partners got an opportunity to present the business on an international platform because they were at Oxford. So Oxford had a seed thing going on. So they collaborated with two other guys who were outside the business to present the project, the idea. And obviously the other guys loved the idea. We got 5K, £5,000 from because they won the competition, and we won £5,000 from that. So they were then moving to another stage of the competition, where I think they were in line to win about 75K pounds. So obviously there's a lot more money on the table. So these guys wanted to then come into the business. So there was a lot of pushback from the other guys that were there already. I suppose the main challenge was in terms of the perceived value. So to say, we are where the money is, basically. And this is the value that we'll be bringing in because, obviously being at Oxford, it's prestigious school. There's a lot of prestige that comes with that and everything. So obviously they had a perception of the value that they were bringing to the table. The other guys that were already in the business had a different perception of that. So there wasn't any meeting of minds there. And, we then agreed to, part ways with the other guys, the outside guys. That was, I think, the biggest hurdle that we had in terms of conflict. I guess what made it easier was that a lot of the guys were preoccupied with other things already. So, people have work that they're doing. Most of the guys are out of the country anyway. Um, so in different parts of the world, obviously, yes, you want to protect your capital, but you people also had the appreciation that they were not the ones on the ground. And the guys who were on the ground running the day-to-day business were not even getting paid by the company. So basically, the guys that were not on the ground really realized that, these guys that are on the ground are the ones who are close to the business. They understand what's going on and they're putting in the work and they're not getting paid for it. So they were kind of very hands off, to be honest. And I think they really trusted us. To be honest, it was really amazing because yes, we then would have regular meetings where we'd give updates that this is what's going on in the business and everything. But you'd realize that guys generally just left the guys on the ground. So we had a management committee that was running about four guys that were in the management committee that were running operations day to day. We hired an external person. She was the one who was doing our dispatch. So we had an external person who was doing the dispatch, the communication with the drivers daily, and everything. And then one of our guys was then doing a lot of the operations work, and I was doing a lot of the finance, and then I ended up doing a lot of finance and marketing as well. So you find that and other guys were in various capacities working in the business. So basically, the management team that was there, we we had an understanding, and I think we worked quite well. So it's the four of us, we just working with defined roles. We knew exactly what this person was doing, that person was doing, and then we would report to the shareholders, everyone else. So it's almost the same way you'd run a public company, right? It's got a million shareholders. We just report to them every quarter, and at the end of the year, we do our financial reports. We present them to the shareholders. The shareholders decide if we're doing a good job. If we're not doing a good job, they fire us. So the shareholders trust the board. I guess that's the same structure that we kind of had. That these guys, yes, there were 16 partners, but they were not active partners. They were more like shareholders. And then there was a smaller group, which was kind of like the board, which was responsible for the day-to-day operations. So I think that made life significantly easier for us in terms of the support that we're getting from the other guys. Yeah.
When you guys started this business, what were your goals? Were your goals to disrupt the market or to get rich? What were your goals?
To be honest, it was just that thing. There's an opportunity in the market. Guys, let's do this. Let's try to make money. Obviously, you want to make money.
Sure.
Obviously, yes, we had grand visions. Because there really wasn't, and actually even up to now, still really isn't a clear market leader in terms of courier services, right? There's not one big company that's doing all the courier work for, you know, companies and individuals and small businesses across the country. So the opportunity was there and it still is there. So it's like, yes, you're seeing an opportunity in the market. There's a really wide gap. You know, e-commerce is kind of at its very early stages. And one of the biggest things that's required in e-commerce is last mile delivery. So obviously, this is a last mile delivery option that's there. It's potentially going to service the e-commerce market that's there. And so that was, I think, the thought process that we had. Obviously, trying to grow the business as much, trying to grow the capital base that we had started with as much as possible, get as many bikes as we can, formalize, make it a proper company that we could even quit our jobs to work for. That was obviously at the back of our minds. But yeah, then life happens.
So now is the company still going? And if so, how many bikes do you guys have?
it's it's still going, but it's in a bit of a comatose state. So basically, what happened was we had three of our bikes being involved in accidents. I think
At the same time?
in the space of a month,
Oh, wow.
and then one of our drivers was involved in an accident on a Friday, right? He didn't really get hurt, and then on Monday he was like, "I'm quitting," because no, he didn't even quit. He was like, "I need to recover," but he wasn't really hurt. And then on that same day, we hear one of our clients saying, I'm with your guy here. He wants, he's telling me that he can do my deliveries. Basically, he's got his own bike, he's got his own operation. So at that point, you then realize that it wasn't probably most of our other drivers were going to go that way to
Correct. Yep.
leave us. And so then we decided to just sell our bikes to, I think there were like three operational bikes that were left. Um, and I think the third one was in a very shaky space in terms of its condition. So we just decided to offload the bikes to the drivers and then make them independent contractors. So basically, you know, your Uber kind of model to say, we get the clients, we have a platform because we already had some established clients that were giving us consistent business. So we get the clients, we give you a job, and then we take a commission. So let's say if a delivery is a $5 delivery, you get $4, we get $1, and then that's it. So in terms of the repairs for the bikes, in terms of the servicing, in terms of the fuel costs, the driver will then take care of that. So that was the model that we then switched to. Um, but I think at that point as well, most of the guys that were on the ground had kind of left. So it was just kind of like, okay, these are the clients that we're remaining with. Let's just keep servicing them. So it's mostly those very few remaining clients that we're servicing just to keep the service going, basically, because they've come to rely on us. Um, so they've built a lot of customer loyalty, I suppose. So obviously we need to keep servicing those clients, and that's just it. So it's really because I think at some point we then also came to the conclusion that the guy that I mentioned earlier who wanted to sell his business to us came to that it's a business with a lot of labor, but you really rarely see the reward. So you know that you're getting a lot of clients and you're getting a lot of work done. The volume of work is high, but then every month you're just leaking money for one reason or the other. And then you end up with nothing at the end of the month. So we realized a lot of guys, I guess, or some guys then relocated as well, left the country. But then the other guys, even the guys who remained, we then realized we are putting in a lot of work into this business. And it's been like 2, 3 years of us consistently going through headaches and dealing with clients that are, mad at you for one reason or the other. And then at the end of the month, what you have, you don't have anything. So really, we then realized it might not necessarily be worth it. To be honest, the demand for delivery services, for courier services, is still there. It's very high. But I think for one to succeed in that market, there's, I don't know how. It's like, the transport business, Makombi, commuter
Yep.
omnibuses.
Yep.
You know how it is, like the demand is there, right? But
People are
literally everyone wants to go home and everyone wants an organized way of, transportation. How do you
yeah,
do it in an orderly way? It's a very chaotic market because anyone can get their combi, put it on the road, and they're competing with you. It's five,
sure.
6K. So it's essentially the same thing that it's a very chaotic market.
So from what I heard from you, the input is not equal the output.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
you guys have learned the market. You have all this information about the
Yeah,
market. So why
yeah.
don't you revolutionize whatever that word is called, the market? Because I know the app system doesn't work in Zimbabwe because of data. People don't have a lot of data, so that's a huge barrier to that. But
Well, that's
what I
kind of changing.
oh,
So I mean, obviously, Starlink came recently, so it forced everyone to revise their prices. So now there's a lot of unlimited data options. But I think now it's more of a culture thing because everyone does everything. You know how it is in China, everyone does everything on WeChat. So
yep,
literally WeChat is like the everything platform. So I think WhatsApp has become that for Zimbabweans. So everyone does everything. If they're not doing it on WhatsApp, they're doing it on Instagram or Facebook. But Facebook and Instagram are also then linked to WhatsApp. So it all goes back to WhatsApp. So even if
mm,
someone can put an online store, even if someone can develop an app, I'm not going to download your app because the only apps that are in my phone really that I care about are Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok, and
sure,
Facebook. And that's it.
sure.
So I think for apps, right now, it's now less of a data and affordability thing, but more of a people are used to WhatsApp.
Accessibility, something they can access to
Accessibility.
and they used to. I,
Precisely.
I I hear
So,
you, but
yeah.
what you've been
And,
explaining, there seem to be
uh-huh.
an opportunity of
Hmm.
creating something like Uber, like right, but for food
Hmm.
deliveries. Uber does food
Hmm.
deliveries as well too.
Hmm.
And you have the information about how everybody thinks in the
Hmm.
market, the drivers, the customers, and
Hmm.
also to the guys that are actually giving you the opportunity to deliver their
Hmm.
food.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking there's something there that Takura can do. I would think
Hmm.
like, you guys pivoting into something like that. As you say, you ended up making the other guys like independent contractors or something
Hmm.
like that, right? You
Hmm.
realize these guys will steal anyway, so let's make
Hmm.
them their own bosses. But by
Hmm.
them being their own bosses, as long as you know we're gonna get our $1, we'll get our
Hmm.
$1, no matter what deals that they do along the way, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's either you guys are gonna start buying bikes and giving it to them, and
Hmm.
say, but you say the guys that are renting the bikes are already doing it. So
Yes, precisely. The guys that sell the
yes,
bikes are already doing it. So yeah, I hear you and you're right. So if you remember, there used to be these guys called Munch. Munch were there before, I think everyone, before COVID. They were doing really well. But I think the challenge that they had, that we also faced, especially with food delivery, it's not, demand is not universal. So it's not, sorry, it's not uniform throughout the day. So you have lunch hour, you have 50 people wanting deliveries. And then between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., there's no one who wants deliveries. And then between 6 and 8 p.m., there's 100 people who want deliveries. So how do you then smooth out your supply of bikes versus the demand that's very, very, very concentrated into few time zones? And the thing with food is it's very sensitive. People don't like their food being late. So the moment you're late, you get a lot of negative feedback from clients and everything. So it's kind of stressful. I don't know why Munch then went out of business, but I know they had significant challenges that they faced. And then during our time, there was also other guys that were specializing in food delivery. They came and they left. Other guys came with e-bikes. I suppose they thought e-bikes were um, less of a hassle to maintain. But I don't know what challenges that they faced. But I think everyone who got into that market faced it, one or two barriers. But I still think it's possible because InDrive. So InDrive came before InDrive. There was Fire, there was Windy, there were like three or four ride sharing apps. They didn't do well. But InDrive came right now, where it wasn't common. Like people would use public transport all the time, right? But then you want to go from. Sorry, I'm going to use places that are in Zim, but I'm sure you'd understand. I don't know if
yeah,
your viewers will understand the context, but like you want to go from Mount Pleasant to Avondale, right? They're less than 5 kilometers apart. But then because there's no direct route from Mount Pleasant to Avondale via public transport, you'd have to go via town and then Avondale. So now when InDrive came, it's telling you from Mount Pleasant to Avondale, it's $2. Anyone can afford $2 So it then made um those apps very no that service very accessible to everyone. I don't know what they did different. I suppose because they came in at a very cheap price point, that's why they were able to penetrate their markets. But I guess that also then comes with the fact that they are being backed by a lot of venture capital, I'm guessing. So InDrive can afford to run into loss and they can afford to, make the rides very cheap because they have the
sure.
venture capital access. So I think if someone was going to do the same in the food delivery business, it would work, but they would need obviously high volumes. For high volumes, they then need to attract the drivers, and they would need to price the product at a very, very, very cheap price. So, and I think it would probably take quite a bit of capital to get that model to work. Because right now, I think InDrive went for a year without taking commissions from drivers. So it's
Mm.
literally, as a driver, whatever fee you get from clients, you keep 100% of it. And I think they came with a different model from Via. Via would tell you that if you put your routes on the map, they would give you a charge, right? But InDrive would say, propose your own charge. Obviously, they had a base fee for everything, which is $2. But so for whatever routes that you want to take, InDrive will tell you to propose your fee. And then if there are drivers who are willing to take that fee, then they take it. If there are no drivers willing to take that fee, you have to increase whatever you're offering. So I think it's it works for markets like Zim where, people like to negotiate and obviously everyone wants to get a bargain. And then obviously for the drivers, they'll then see this makes sense for me from a cost perspective. If I do this trip for $5, will I recover my fuel cost? Will I recover my repair cost? That's up to them. So I think that
So,
model worked different from Uber. It works because it was different from Uber in that regard.
so let me ask you about InDrive. InDrive is
Mhm.
an app, right?
Yeah, it's
People
an
still
app.
download it. Look at that. So you took back to what you said. I want to take you to something that I was thinking about InDrive. I never used the
Uh-huh.
app. I never looked at
Uh-huh.
it. But I'll
Uh-huh.
ask you this: since everything seems to be free, do they
Uh-huh.
run adverts on the app? Because some other times how people make money is that you have this volume of people coming on your application, right? So you
Yeah.
can just run ads and just make
Yeah.
your money through ads. So like you
Yeah.
don't care about money from the driver or the passengers. So you just run ads on the app and just make
Yeah.
money through that. So do they do that, or just like completely you get in there, you just get your ride and that's about it and you're out?
Nothing like that. They don't do ads. So and most people will just go on the app just to order an InDrive and then they're done. So they don't do ads. They don't do anything. It's literally just they're making. I suppose it's a market penetration strategy, but they're
Sure.
literally just doing the direct InDrive service, no ads, no nothing. If anything, they're actually the ones who put ads. Like right now, if I go on YouTube, I'm probably going to get 5 ads from InDrive.
If
So
from right?
from InDrive, encouraging me to use the app. So it's the other way around. So you find that they've put in a lot of money. They invested a lot into their app. And I think
Sure.
maybe that's how they even got people, because people don't usually download apps, right? But everyone, trust me, right now, everyone, the same way everyone has WhatsApp on their phone, everyone has InDrive on their phone. So,
So, so you see, you can copy the Indra strategy, but also too, what I see that works for a lot of businesses here, especially if it's a new concept or new idea
mhm,
that people won't really necessarily gravitate towards. In the
mhm.
beginning, it's a lot of free packs. Like for
Yes.
example, you get three free deliveries. Your first
Mhm,
pizza is on us. Zimbabwe is
mhm.
like free stuff. I tell you
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Challenge with that, like it's a lot of conversations you gotta have with your customers that are gonna
Mhm,
be giving you the food deliveries. Is
mhm,
how much stuff they can give you for free, so you can
mhm,
pass it down to other people for free, so that you
mhm,
don't necessarily have to have the capital yourself to fund
mhm,
that. In case you don't have any venture capital, right?
mhm,
So that's
mhm,
where like the convincing. But you guys been in business for so long that you already have a certain clientele or a base of clients maybe that trust you and that kind of likes you guys and want to do
mhm,
business with you and want to see
mhm,
you guys win. So
mhm.
for the next chapter or the next idea in building an app, the problem is trying to get people to the app, give people free things, hook
Yeah.
them in, hook them in. Once they're
Mhm,
hooked, but the culture here in the US is different from because now my thinking is different from what I used to be like when I was in Zimbabwe, right? If
mhm.
I'll go there and get my free pizza and never come back.
And then I'll go. Yeah, so that's the risk of it
So,
as
so
well.
there's the other challenges. Like some ideas work in
Yeah.
other countries, but because of the
Because
culture
even
that
right now with InDrive, right?
yeah,
Bolt came. Bolt is apparently offering lower prices than InDrive. So now
sure.
people have Bolt and they have InDrive on their phones. So yes, people still use InDrive, but also some people use Bolt. So loyalty really, you can't buy loyalty, I think. It's very difficult in this market to guarantee that you'll get loyalty. And I think even down the line, once you've um conquered the market share, you've got 50% market share, and then you
Sure.
start charging your commission to the drivers, it's also not guaranteed that you'll recoup what you invested. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it took Uber, I don't know how many years for them to become profitable, right?
Are they
And if
profitable now? I haven't
I don't
checked
even, I
yet.
don't know if they're profitable. Last time I checked, I think they had made their first profits. It was
Okay.
just one quarter that they made profits in a very long time. So you find that yes, there's you can invest all this capital into buying customers, customer acquisition cost. But the question is, are you going to avoid attrition once you have those customers? And even if you then avoid the attrition, are you going to make money? Like someone actually one of the guys, my partners from Takur actually sent this article. I'll forward it to you. Like the exact same challenges that we faced in Zim, a lot of delivery companies in the UK are closing down because of those challenges that we faced and because it's not profitable. So you then realize that maybe it takes a lot to change the entire business model and to make it profitable. I think maybe also another thing that could work, because I know it's being done in SA, right? It's the retailers. So you know Checkers from South Africa.
Yep.
They have the service called Checkers 60 where they do deliveries. They're the ones who own the the model basically. I don't know if they own the bikes or if the bikers are independent, but they're the ones who manage that service. So obviously, from their point of view, it's less of us wanting to make money from the bike delivery service and more of us growing our groceries revenue. So I think for someone who already has like Simbisa with dollar delivery, for them they wouldn't mind losing money on dollar delivery because it's getting them more business for their chicken, for their Nando's, for the other things that they're selling. So I think that's also another thing where a courier business in itself might not be self-sustaining, but it might help someone who already has another business going on to make that business, better.
Okay.
Hmm.
So there's a thing called that I had recently. They say that pioneers get slaughtered and settlers get rewarded. So
That's
what you
true.
guys, you started all this
They
learning
got
that you do,
slaughtered.
what works, what doesn't work. You
Yeah.
pioneer that
Hmm.
industry, right? So
Hmm.
you're getting slaughtered, all
Hmm.
these things that you challenge you face. Somebody else is gonna come like 3 years, 4 years down the line,
They
and
get
then
the
they're gonna get
rewards.
rewarded from
Could
all
be us.
the
We could come back.
so, but there's this thing that I wanted to mention. Here there's an
Mhm.
app called Roadie.
Mhm.
Roadie. So
Mhm.
basically what the app does is like it just puts an order. It has a list of drivers. You come
Mhm.
in, you sign up and say, like, listen, I have a car, I want to deliver things to wherever. And then
Mhm.
you get approved to drive on that platform. So
Mhm.
what they do is like, let's say there's an order at Spar, let's say there's an order at Checkers. You see
Mhm.
that, and then the
Mhm.
drivers have to bid on it. Like, okay, who wants
Yes.
to get?
Yes.
So if you create a platform like that, that's how I can see. That's also how I can see you guys
Yes.
winning. But
We
the
actually
challenge
had
is like,
that
how can you create the relationships with all
with
these
with
retailers,
all
right?
these
And then
retailers. Yeah.
work with them to have you
Yeah.
guys on board. That's the
Yeah.
conversation. Some things that you have to figure out.
Yeah.
So
It's actually a good idea actually. Uh, and I think it's something that we tried, right? The moment we decided that we don't want to own bikes anymore. But I guess you then have a bit of a chicken and egg situation to say, who do you get on board first? If you want to get retailers on board, they're saying you have the available base of drivers. If you want to get the drivers on board, they want guaranteed business. So maybe in the initial stages, you probably then have to subsidize the drivers or subsidize the retailer or someone. But there's someone that is a bit of a compromise that you have to make so that one of the two parties gets onto the platform and then things start moving. But I think it's definitely a very interesting concept. It's an
look at it
interesting
like this.
concept.
These guys that have been stealing from you, you're
Hmm.
untrustworthy drivers. Start with them. You sign them
Yeah.
up. They're always looking for a better opportunity, right? You
Yeah,
sign
they
them
are. They
up.
are. They are.
But also too, like, I don't know how much business is in for them. Are they always busy? because they can still continue. You don't have them full time. They can
Yeah.
still continue doing,
Doing whatever they were doing. Yeah.
they're gonna make time for you. They
Yeah.
prove themselves.
Yeah.
They like to make money. So,
Yeah.
you start with those guys because you already have a base. That's your
Yeah.
base. And as you said, you just once you have that base, just getting that one big client. As I said, it's not about, as I always say, like, we usually focus on these small things. Just
hmm
one person will change your life.
Yeah,
Just
true,
one thing.
true.
But
So
you
I,
just
I
need to
guess maybe another dynamic is that retail itself in Zim is in a bit of trouble right now. Okay, they actually had to fire the top management. They're closing some of their shops because everyone right now is buying in the small tuck shops
show.
because the retailers they're not very agile. The market is just messed up. They have a lot of regulation going on. The exchange rates are regulated. So there's a lot of dynamics going on in the retail space. So these guys are actually really struggling to survive. So I guess that's also another dynamic. But obviously, they definitely going to come back because as a country, we still then need retail. And I think large retailers, they're going to have to find a way to survive. And I'm sure they'll survive. And I think that concept can actually work. It does have a lot of merit to it.
I think in
Yeah,
the beginning, your target should be not everybody, if I might
true,
say. I know which
true.
retailer people with money in Zimbabwe buy from. I'm
Mhm,
not sure where to start with those retailers, and then
mhm,
learn from that experience. And then once you
mhm,
have a little bit of more capital to expand from there, then you start
mhm,
slowly expanding into
mhm,
into everybody. But also the other question that I had for your food delivery business,
mhm.
which clients were you really servicing? What was your target market?
So,
Was it for
so,
everybody or like,
so it wasn't actually food delivery per se. It was just a courier service delivery. You delivered everything.
sure,
So you find that our clients were not our clients, they were our clients' clients. What I mean by that is we didn't target necessarily you, the person who wants to buy something online. We would go to the person who's selling, who's got an online shop. Because you know how it is, like, a lot of people will be selling stuff on the side. So even someone is working where they're working, they have a side hustle, which is selling perfumes. Someone has a side hustle of selling clothes. So because they're working full time or they have other things they're doing, or some actually at shops, but then their clients, some of them would be at work and whatever, so they would order from them and we would deliver to their clients. So we worked with mostly the online stores, and I think
mm,
most of them were the boutiques, the guys who sold clothes, women's clothes. To be honest, I think at least 70-80% of our deliveries were for women's items. So be
hmm,
it fashion related things, be it cosmetics, be it clothes, shoes, you name it. It was mostly those were the bulk of our clients by far. Yeah.
interesting. I didn't
Yeah.
expect that. I was expecting it to be something different.
No,
So
no, no,
let
no.
me ask
Food
it.
was we left the food market very early on because we had a lot of bad experiences. Like I said, food is very sensitive. So like this other time we worked with a business that does seafood and they were very popular with their clients, obviously. So one of our drivers, there was a bit of I don't know what happened, whose fault it was, but the bottom line is the delivery got to the clients very late, and obviously the client wasn't happy. Their client wasn't happy, so their client, shouted at them. They came and they shouted at us because obviously it's like, yeah, you guys messed up the delivery and it was just a mess. So we then realized that food deliveries are very sensitive because they're time sensitive all the time, right?
Sure.
But then clothes, I can order clothes today and you can deliver tomorrow. Like you guys, when you order things on Amazon, it's not necessarily, unless you're on Prime, you're not expecting instant delivery. But someone who's ordering food is expecting instant delivery. So with instant delivery, you have to get a lot of things right. And you have to pack that food in a certain way or also to get there spoiled. There's a lot of things that you have to do, but at the end of the day, the delivery fee is still the same. So
Hmm,
with food, you're going to get a lot of angry clients. But with clothes, there's very few ways in which you can mess up a delivery of clothes, right? So we then decided to deliberately move away from trying to do anything to do with food and to move towards those things that are not as time sensitive. So some of these things you could then say, you know what, I couldn't deliver this today, I can deliver this tomorrow morning. And the client wouldn't mind because it's clothes, unless if it's something that they want to wear that day. So you then realize that certain sectors were easier to deal with than others. And yeah.
Let me ask, which one pays more? Delivering food or delivering clothing? Which one is, how did you
Clothes.
guys price? The price the
No,
same?
the price was the same. That's the problem. The
No, no,
price was the
sorry.
same.
Which one made the most money for you guys? Was
The
it,
clothes,
which
by far.
clothing?
So because it's not just as clothes. Let me just say anything. Women's products. So it
Sure.
was clothes, it was hair, it was cosmetics, it was supplements, it was, cooking things, it was ingredients, it was like all sorts of random things. But the bottom line is it was mostly women who were buying from these stores. And yeah, most of our clients were basically businesses of that nature.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll tell you something that I've done with my business. My main business, I'm into the boat rental and boat chartering business.
Mm-hmm.
So with the boat chartering business, you have competition, right? Other
Mm-hmm.
people doing the same thing that you're doing. And these
Mm-hmm.
other people actually might have better vessel like
Mm-hmm.
boats, better
Mm-hmm.
boats or yachts better than what you have in your
Mm-hmm.
inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot compete with that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get more money to to compete at that level. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I how do I deal with that? You
Mm-hmm.
know what I did is
Mm-hmm.
that I got into partnerships with the other guys that are
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing that I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and got even if I'm making $5, even if I'm
You're
making
getting
$10,
something. Yeah.
I'm the leader in that market. No, I
Mm-hmm.
become the leader in that market.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what
So
you're
it
saying.
might be somebody's looking at the nicer boat that this guy has
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit more price, right?
Mm-hmm.
His hourly rental is higher. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that this is, we call it the law of proximity, right?
Mm-hmm.
This guy is listed on my website. They're gonna look at my vessel as well. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
charging less, they'll be like, oh, this is much more lesser. Then I
Mm-hmm.
have another guy that might not have a boat that is not as nice as mine. So they'll
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh, I might actually get into this one
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
little bit of the same price as the other guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What I'm doing, how do I say that? I'm still competing with these guys, but I'm leading
But
in
you're
the
working
market.
with them. Yeah.
I'm working with them, but by
Mm-hmm.
working with them, my name is getting bigger than them,
Mm-hmm.
all of them, because I combined all of them together
Mm-hmm.
and
I
made them
get you.
look like my clients. They don't know that Todd doesn't own all these other vessels that he's working with, right? They don't know that information. To them, I'm bigger than what I am on, on what I am on
On the
paper.
ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, that is actually made me progress more because I've used other people's resources that I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be fighting or competing with. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to connect, I'm trying to connect it back to the idea of like, figuring out a way of trying to collaborate with other people doing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't necessarily need to make so much money off them, but
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit. But my business is different, right? As you said, you deal with clients, you don't know how they handle business, you don't know how these people operate.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to mess up your business at the end of the day if
Mm-hmm.
you have these guys representing your business, right? They might
Yeah.
end up doing some things that you don't really agree with.
Mm-hmm.
So, me, I figured out a way on how to go around all of that. But that's an idea that I just throw out there is that a lot of people, it's called a billionaire thinking right now. That's why we have billionaire mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
A billionaire thinks like, how can I control all the resources in the market? Even
Mm-hmm.
if I don't own them, how can I control them? Or how can people
This is
look at
ownership.
me, ownership, right? Or
Yeah.
how can people look at me like the leader of the market? Because
Mm-hmm.
people want to deal with the leader of the market, right? So
True.
how do I make myself look like the leader? Even if I approach like checkers or like Spar and say like, listen, I'm the biggest carrier in Zimbabwe. And you're the biggest? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what about these guys? No, these guys, they're here. They work with me. We're right here. So right now you're showing leadership, right? You're the
Yeah.
one that's leading. even if this guy's ahead of
But you're
me.
the leader
Sorry,
of the pack.
you're the leader of the pack. You always want to
Yeah.
look like the not look like the leader. You always want to be the leader. You always want whatever moves you're making. You always want to be leading the pack. But
Mhm,
from what you have learned from building a business, a delivery business like that,
mhm.
with what you're knowing now, do you think you could have gone back and done something differently in the beginning? Do you think you guys could have done something different that could give you given you guys a different outcome?
That is a very good question. Trying to think, what could we have done different? Um, yeah, because I mean, everything happens in a very linear way. So you
Sure.
learn things, you learn things, you learn things. Could we have done other things different? I think we could have been more proactive in terms of managing our drivers. Because it took a lot of time for us to put trackers on their bikes. But then obviously
Sure.
there's a lot of revenue leakage that happens when you don't know exactly where your driver is at a particular point in time. There's a lot of frustration with clients. So I know like what Dialer Delivery is doing right now is when they dispatch your order, they'll give you a link with the location, the current location of your driver. So you know exactly where he is and you know exactly how far away he is from you. It takes away a lot of back and forth. And obviously it makes the drivers, in as much as they can still do a lot of shenanigans, but they now know that they're being tracked and there's a lot less mischief that they can do. So I think we could have done that way earlier on. The technology was available. At some point, we had the capital to put trackers on all our bikes from a competent supplier and everything. But I guess we didn't then allocate our capital as efficiently as we could have in that regard. Yeah, I think that one thing, and obviously incorporation of, yes, more technology, not necessarily having an app for deliveries, but more of in-house, just trying to have a better way of coordinating deliveries, whether it's an app-based thing or a system or a program, whatever the case might be. I think we could have done better in that regard. Yeah, I think those are the two things. Because I think, yes, we have a lot of challenges in the logistical processes, but I think there's also a lot of technology that's now available to kind of curtail some of these challenges and mitigate the risks. So yeah, I think we could have done that part of things a lot better.
But also, too, looking back, would you, with what you know again, would you have started the same type of business?
I'd have gone into cement. I think we should have done the cement business, but yeah, well, no, maybe not. But I think like even the things that you were talking about in terms of some of these opportunities, to partner with large retailers like the app that you talked about that's in the US. I think opportunities are there still. So I wouldn't have said I wouldn't have gone back into the business because I think even right now, with the right framework, the right model, the right infrastructure, the right I don't know what the right model or the right infrastructure looks like, but I think the gap is still there in the market. So it's a business worth exploring still. It's just the question of how do you do it? What's the strategy that you get in with? How much more time can you devote into studying the trends and studying other things that we might have overlooked? So I might have gone back in still. I don't have regrets of going into the business because I think we learned a lot. The good thing about this business is you learn a lot about a lot of other businesses, not just yours. So now I know that cosmetics have a very, very big market. Now I know that, clothing, albeit women's clothing, has a very big market. It's things that I wouldn't have known. I would have never guessed because I wouldn't have had any reason to know about those things. But now I know a lot of things about a lot of the way a lot of things work in Zim and a lot of businesses work. So it was a very good learning opportunity. Yeah.
Sure. And so, with this business, is it the end of the road, or are we still gonna see you guys come back stronger? sometime soon. Because the biggest misconceptions that we have as business owners or people
Mhm.
that start businesses, you say it on paper,
Mhm.
everything checks out, the
Mhm.
vision, the plan, everything connects. And then when you actually carry out the vision, then it's totally different from what
Totally.
you did, right? The millions that were written down on paper, it seems
Mhm.
like you're not gonna get there anytime soon. But
Mhm.
when you wrote it on paper, everything was checking out that okay, you're on track to make millions and millions of dollars.
Mhm.
So now the trick or the thing is just to keep going. That's it.
True.
It sounds so insane. It's just like, just keep going.
Mhm.
Because it's gonna happen at some point.
Mhm.
Even if it
But I
doesn't
think
happen,
it's also important to know which businesses to cut your losses on and which
sure.
businesses to keep going with.
In
And I think
accounting,
that's a very
that cost, right?
I'm not cutting costs.
Sunk, like SUNK, sunk
Oh,
cost.
sunk cost, yes, 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 sunk cost. So there's actually a sunk. It's called a sunk cost fallacy, whereby
Yeah.
people get into Ponzi schemes. The reason why they keep getting conned is that because I've put in a lot of money already, and I can't get it back. I'd rather put in more money in the hopes that I'll recover the money that I put in and the extra money that I put in, instead of losing what I've already lost. So I think the sunk cost thing is a very big risk for business owners. But like what you said, because if I heard somewhere that the guy who owned FedEx, I think they were like very close to bankruptcy, and then he took the last bit of money that he had, went to Vegas, bet on it, then he won, and then he came back with more money and then put it back into the business. So I mean, if he had quit early on, we wouldn't have FedEx, right? So I think with business, you also then have to have, because obviously, especially if you're pioneering, if you're starting something new, there's obviously going to be a lot of uncharted territory. So there's a lot of things a lot of pain that you're going to have to take, right? It's the pioneer. You're the pioneer. You're going to have to get slaughtered. So either you can remain a pioneer and die when you get slaughtered, or you can wake up and be a settler, and then
Later.
and then recover. So I don't know. I think I'm keeping the door open. I'm not going to say we're going to quit and then, because look,
So
life is
I'll
always
tell you
evolving.
something very personal is that, like, I started so many businesses
Hmm.
and I quit along the way to
Hmm.
go do something different.
Hmm.
But what happened along the way is that you spend 3 years building this thing, right? Now
Hmm.
you know how the delivery business works in Zimbabwe.
Hmm.
So if you're going to college, you have like a 4 to 5 year degree. You almost have your master's now in
Hmm.
how delivery business works in Zimbabwe.
True.
If you go a different route and start a new business, guess
Hmm.
what you do? It's like you have a bachelor's in business and then you try to do a
A
bachelor's in
bachelor's,
biology.
yeah, true. You're
So
abandoning the lessons
it's
that you
not
learned. Yeah,
making sense, right? You have
you're
to
making
start
sense.
learning again those
Yeah,
4 years. Then if it doesn't work out, so there are those entrepreneurs that spend the rest of their lives trying
learning.
this business,
Yeah.
trying this business, and they
Hmm.
never make it because the life. For a business to really make it, you need 10 years in business.
Hmm.
That's how you really make it in business.
Hmm.
But for most business, we die at 5 years. It's
Hmm.
done. 5 years is done.
Hmm.
But to really make it, it's either the fifth year, that's when you start making money. But when you start making money, that's when you start going down again. So you
True.
need to figure out how to keep going. I don't know how you're gonna do it. You're gonna expand whatever you gotta do to keep going to the 10
Hmm.
years, right? So
Hmm.
that's how a lot of I don't know why I mentioned that. Oh, I was just gonna mention that like a lot of entrepreneurs we end up like we spend 4 or 5 years doing a business, we get slaughtered as the pioneers, and then when
Hmm.
you're about to be a settler, we go and become a pioneer,
Again, in a new business.
pioneer somewhere else. So our whole
Yeah.
life we just get slaughtered, you
Yeah,
know?
just getting slaughtered every day. I don't think I'd want that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. It's true. I think at some point you just have to, bite the bullet and say, I'm going to commit to this and see it out. If I die, I
But the
die.
chap talked about the sunk cost fallacy, right? You invested your time, your
Yes,
money. So on the other hand, so there is that balance where you got to figure it out. As you
true.
said, like sometimes some of this business for sure you learned a lot, but
Mhm,
it's not. But one of the things that I like to do though is that instead of losing your bachelor's or master's in business,
mhm,
or trying to change to a completely different route, you
mhm,
find something along the lines because you already have the foundation and the
mhm,
knowledge of how a business works. Like, for
mhm,
example, I used to have an entertainment business. So I
mhm,
already had a clientele, people that really trusted whatever I was doing because I
mhm,
was good at it. So guess
mhm.
what I did? When I started my board chartering business, where was
Pivot
my foundation?
in the
But I'm
same,
still
yeah.
entertaining people, right? It's
Mhm,
board charters, board
mhm,
rentals. People are still getting entertained, but just in a
mhm,
different way. It's just that, like, I just changed the business in a different. So
mhm,
that's how I want to keep going with my business. Is that
mhm.
if I'm changing, I'm not completely going off. It's just
You're
like I can
maintaining
transfer
a certain
the class
clientele base. Yeah.
new exciting
Mhm,
that they can still enjoy and and
mhm.
be and for me to be successful in that area as well too.
That's good.
So the other thing that you talked about in our conversation is that the human capital
Mhm,
uh, in Africa, or especially in Zimbabwe too, people are not reliable, right?
mhm,
I gave it a shot to do business in Africa because for
mhm.
some reason I thought I was going to be a venture capitalist, put some money together and do
Maybe
some
one
different
day.
So
Mhm,
I had a venture that I was doing in Tanzania, and it was an awakening moment of understanding that I'm living here in America. It's called I'm living in a dream. The reality, you get to Africa, you actually see the reality of how
mhm,
things really work
mhm,
because people are not trustworthy on small things, right? For
mhm,
example, I had a lot of money invested for the future to
mhm,
do big things and big projects in Africa. And I
mhm,
shared the vision and the goal of saying,
mhm,
like, we are right here. We're only
mhm,
getting this amount here. We can
mhm,
get more zeros that we're getting, right? We're
mhm,
getting like maybe two zeros, right? We
mhm,
can get 6 to 7 zeros in the future to get
mhm,
things going. But let's make sure we build on this two
mhm,
zeros, right? Let's make sure we
mhm,
do something. People
mhm.
still in that incident.
It
It,
happens.
to me, it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. Like, you can get more money here, right? If you do the
Well,
work and get
they have
here,
immediate needs to take care of. Yeah, delayed gratification is not
there you
easy,
go. So I
unfortunately.
realize a lot of people have immediate needs to take care of. But also, too, there's that thing where I don't think a lot of people have a belief in that they can do more with their life. They say their life. I think the way that we're brought up, we're not allowed to think about the future. We're not built to think about 10 years from now, what am I going to be doing? 5 years from now, you said instant gratification, right? So
Mhm,
people are really like on a timeline. What am I going to eat tomorrow at 6 p.m.?
mhm.
How am I going to get the $2,
Yes.
right?
So I think some of these things, for lack of a better word, it's a luxury that comes with stability.
There
So
you go.
when you're coming from a place that's not stable, you really don't have the luxury to think about, oh, what am I, where are my kids going to go to school when you can't, earn a living for yourself? So I think some of these things, they also because of the environment that we're in, whereby you are trying to move from the first point of call, which is survival. So obviously, you can then think, I'm going to retire. How am I going to retire? You can think about that when every month you know that your salary is coming in and you're well taken care of, your basics are taken care of. So I think maybe the challenge that we have is obviously because of where we're currently at. A lot of people are operating in survival mode, and it's difficult. So obviously, yes, you can pitch an idea to say this is where we could be in 10 years. But I'm not thinking 10 years. I
No
can't
one
think
cares about any plan, bro.
I can't think about 10 years when my family needs to be fed today.
There you
So
go.
it's just one of those things, I suppose.
So the point I was trying to bring about is that like a lot of entrepreneurs, I could relate to a lot of entrepreneurs in Africa,
Mhm,
and from what you explained to me about the driver going in and betraying
mhm,
you guys for $2, going behind
mhm,
your back trying to make an extra $10 without you
mhm,
guys knowing, right? At your
mhm,
own cost. They're not
mhm,
thinking the principle,
mhm,
the morality of it
mhm,
all, right?
mhm,
Of like it's simple things. Some failures are caused by people not just doing the right thing.
mhm,
It's not that the idea is bad. It's just the
True.
market that you exist in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's so that mindset. That's where I get so like, because I'm not ready to start another business in Africa. I could have brought a lot of money to Africa through different ventures,
Mm-hmm.
but it's there. The money's there. The people are there that want to do it, but the people to do it with. I now know how it works and how the people think and how the people see things. It's completely different here. Like with my friends here in the US, you could talk to them and be like, you give them something, they're gonna do it, right? You trust them with the vision and say, like, listen, man, this is where we're gonna go. Point A, point B, point. They get it. As you talked about stability, right? They're not worried about that. But so
Mm-hmm.
if I'm to build a business in Africa, people are worried about so many things. They're worried
Yeah.
about the now. What are you giving to me now? So how
Mm-hmm.
can I build a business that can survive on now? As a young entrepreneur that
It's
trying to build
difficult
things and be
for the
successful.
future.
And
Yeah.
also the other challenge, there's not a lot of capital in Africa too, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
bootstrap and you're getting all the money from your own pockets to
Mm-hmm.
do things. So
Mm-hmm.
like how? Do you see a future in that? So I'm posing all those questions to you and try to paint a picture. And of course, you have lived the life, right? So you understand it better, and you also been doing the same business for the past 3 years, facing
Mm-hmm.
a lot of challenges. You talked about the guys that are giving you the deliveries too. They go behind your back and start
Mm-hmm.
doing business with you, killing your business. They don't think about the other entrepreneur next to them. And so, so the question I'm trying to ask Moro is that like how do we get to that environment of where like we all like sort of like we don't have these problems of people not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I would say, I think the biggest challenge, even from a developmental perspective or a political perspective, is we're trying to take solutions that are made for other cultures and import them into a culture that's not suited for it. So
Sure.
even this thing that you talked about, I think there's is it psychologists or sociologists? They call it there's high trust cultures and there's low trust cultures. So even if you look at how Asia developed, they didn't take things that work in the West. So even Japanese political models, Chinese political models, they're different from the models that you have in the US and the UK. But unfortunately, because of colonialism and whatever else that happened historically, we have a copy paste of the UK parliamentary system. But the UK parliamentary system works in a country where people are taught from an early age it's okay to challenge authority. Here, we're taught it's not okay to speak back to your elders. It's not okay to challenge authority. So you're not going to start challenging authority when you're grown up just because your political system tells you to do so. It's the same thing in business. Um, so apparently, there's a theory that if you look at the way Asians do things, because they were cultivating rice, they have a very, very intense, hardworking culture. And then for us, because our way of agriculture was seasonal, we have a different way of doing things. So I think at the end of the day, how we're going to make business work here is find models that work for the cultural context that we have. So I talked about InDrive. I think the reason why InDrive worked and Via didn't is because here we have a culture of, negotiating. If you go on the street, you negotiate. There's no fixed price. That's the same thing that they did. It's pure market system when you think about it. The driver off you offer a price. There's drivers. They look at your price. They look at and they evaluate. If they don't want to take it, they don't take it. If they want it, they'll take it. They bid. So I think it's then looking at everything that we're doing with that lens to say, if I'm going to do business in Zim, how am I going to do it different from the way it's done in the US? So even if you're bringing, I still believe very strongly that there's a lot of money to be made here, but obviously it comes with a lot of risk. Um, but even then, you might not even need to take that much risk. I think it just requires someone who's got a really, really good understanding of the cultural context that we're working in. And I think once you get that, this continent has a lot of potential to just take off like that because at the end of the day, we have the youngest population in the world. You know, we have, they call it the demographic dividend. We have, all the 80% of the world's arable land. We have all the minerals. We have, every other place has developed. There's no other place in the world where you can start building infrastructure from scratch because they already have the infrastructure. You can't start to build a train network. So if you look at how China did it, China has become the leader in EV technology because they didn't have that institutional baggage that comes with your conventional combustion engine technology. So you can't take electric vehicles and take them to Detroit because Detroit has been making diesel engines for 100 years, right? That's what they know. That's what they're structured to do. On the other hand, you can take them to China because they don't know anything. They're starting on a clean slate. It's the same thing with I think they have the best or the fastest bullet train system in the world because they didn't have the trains to begin with. So when we're starting from scratch, we're like, okay, can I build a conventional railway line? The same technology that was there in the 1860s or bullet train technology. They start with bullet train technology. Even with us, the reason why, if you look at a lot of people, their first bank account is not the conventional bank account, it's a mobile money account. It's an EcoCash wallet. We didn't, and even phones, we don't have landlines. We don't have a landline system. We just went straight from having nothing to having cell phones. So it's that same thing whereby because we are very underdeveloped in a lot of regards, it's a huge opportunity for us to just leapfrog from zero to. So there's AI coming, there's blockchain, there's all these things coming. We can literally just take them and move from zero to wherever the latest trend is. But I suppose obviously it's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's going to happen one way or the other. If eventually or inevitably it's going to happen. So yeah, but I'm just being an optimist, I suppose. I'm an optimist.
It's good to be an optimist. It's
Yeah,
better to be an optimist than to be a pessimist.
yeah,
That's what I'll say. But
yeah.
somebody that wants to build a business in Zimbabwe, from what you know now, what
Mhm.
would you tell them? What advice would you tell them? Or any other developing country, people that want to build a business in a developing country?
So I'd say it's like it's a lot like Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, they talk about but build a minimum viable product, get it into the market, get burnt quickly, and learn as much as you can. I think that's because here the things that you learn in school probably don't work because they're not tailored for what's on the ground. So I think the most important thing is find out what's on the ground, iterate, iterate fast, and get feedback from your clients. Get a lot of feedback from your clients and adjust accordingly. I think that's what I would say. And because there's obviously a lot of need, and every business is obviously servicing a need that's there. So the question is, how are you servicing the need? So I think the opportunities are definitely there, but don't be naive. Don't put in a lot of money all at once. Put in a bit, test the market, understand what the market is about, and then put in more money. Build gradually. That's what I would say.
Okay, this has been wonderful, my friend. Thanks for doing this with me. This is the start to
So
Tata Consulting Services here. Tata
we
coming
still
soon.
have that tower. It's supposed to happen eventually.
Supposed to happen, man. It's the right time. It has to
Yeah,
happen at the right time. And when it
yeah.
happens, only get it right once, right? It
True,
has to
true.
happen at the
It has
right
to
time.
happen.
But I appreciate you, my friend, and for doing this with me today.
Thank you
I
so
hope
much
you
for
have.
having me.
Thanks for taking your time.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Cheers.